My friends, welcome back. It is Tuesday, July 30th, 2019, 7:49, almost 7:50 p.m. here on the East Coast, where it is 10,000 degrees. I'm just kidding about that. We finally had a little bit of a break with that heat wave going on. You could see a lot of 70s, upper 70s, 80s, and then, of course, you got your high 80s. So it's not exactly cooling off. It's just a lot more tolerable than it has been. We've been getting hit with some storms. As recently as an hour ago, we had a pretty significant storm here in upstate northeast Pennsylvania, I would say. I was going to say upstate New York, but that's my old stomping grounds. With that said, check out the middle of the country, guys. Still very hot in Texas, all over the place. Shooting straight up through Oklahoma. Then, of course, our whole Death Valley. I call this whole corner Death Valley because it just never goes above 100 degrees. It'll be 3 in the morning on this side of the country, and it'll still be 101 degrees. So I don't ever see that changing. It'll be the middle of December, January, February. It'll still be 100 degrees right there. So for those of you that live there, God bless you. I would love to come visit and get some cool footage out there. But before I get too far off here, let's talk about some stuff that we need to catch up on. And this is going to be more of an overview video. I'm not going to go into too much detail here as I have missed a week of posting here. I apologize for that, but we're back to normal schedule. But of course, the week I choose to not post is the week where we have 4 potential hurricanes in the ocean, 2 very significant, 2 possible, and those 2 very significant I'm going to show you right now in the Pacific Ocean. Really quick though, here is that heat and storm situation I was just talking about with the northeast of the U.S. This is covering parts of New York, Vermont, New Hampshire. We got Massachusetts in there, parts of Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, central PA all the way to northeast PA, so on and so forth. So these areas, if you live there, just keep an eye out. Anything that can be, tossed around easily with wind, tie it down, get it, secure. Because some of these fronts that are coming through are pretty powerful. My mom and I were outside watching one. She's not to embarrass her or anything, but she's a little scaredy cat when it comes to the storm. So I have to stand with her and explain to her how she's not going to get hurt and what everything means, like this cloud, that cloud. You know how it goes. I'm a mama's boy, I'll gladly admit that. Caroline will tell you that too. So that's the update with the Northeast. Now let's get to these hurricanes because that's the most important part of this video, and we've already spent enough time talking about other stuff. So we have Hurricane Erick. This hurricane, guys, is a Category 4. We are at 130 miles per hour, sustained winds. That's 115 knots, 952 millibars in pressure. That's very low. We can see the track here once we click on it. It is due to pass underneath the main island of Hawaii and more than likely stay away. Now, that is one version of it. Now, I've looked at some other charts that show this thing kind of heading up in a northern direction and then maybe weakening right before it hits. It's so hard to tell when it comes to these hurricanes because right now it's following a warm water path. The further north that this storm goes, the cooler the water is going to be, the more weakening is going to happen. And they're relying on a trade wind that is expected to start between Friday and Saturday. And what a trade wind is a high altitude wind that can rip apart a hurricane. That's how strong these winds are, but it depends on how developed this thing is going to be by the time that happens. Now, you can see these letter M's here. Guys, that stands for major hurricane. You have hurricane for H, storm would be tropical storm, and M is major hurricane. So we are dealing with a Category 4. I can probably go ahead and say this is our first Category 4 of the year, whether that be the Pacific or the Atlantic, but very strong storm, very, very close to Hawaii. Even though it's showing that it's going to potentially go underneath it, we just don't know because I could show you chart after chart showing that it's not taking that exact path that they're claiming. You can see here it just passes underneath the island of Hawaii when we're using the GFS. The legacy, the new version of the GFS, has kind of been a little up and down lately. It was supposed to be an upgrade, and now it seems like it's they still need some more work to do on it. But we kind of go back and forth with those charts, and we kind of match up the data to see which one's the most accurate at that time for the most accurate information for you guys. But you can see here with this cone of uncertainty. That's why I don't like these cones of uncertainty. It's basically them saying, we don't know where this thing's going to go, but it's going to be somewhere within here. That doesn't really help the people of Hawaii too much, so that's why I like to show different charts and stuff like that. But you can clearly see this is a very, very strong, big, large hurricane. 952 pressure. This is current time. You could see it is to the south east at the moment, but it is definitely tracking to the west. And right on its heels, we have another hurricane. And that hurricane is called Flossie, like you would floss your teeth. That is also a hurricane at this time. And we can look at, where is our current storm page here that we use. I have so many tabs pulled up. That's how we do it here. So here we go. All right, so Hurricane Erick, 140 knots. Never mind, now it's gone up 10 miles an hour. It's still a Cat 4. Or no, that's knots, I'm sorry. The gusts are at 140 knots. I apologize, I take that back. It is Cat 4. It has the potential to be a Cat 5, guys. This could be a Category 5 hurricane in the Pacific Ocean. Hurricane Erick. Do not take your eyes off this one, especially if you live in Hawaii. And then right after that is Flossie. Flossie is literally on the toes of Erick. This is Erick after it has already come and gone past Hawaii. Hopefully it stays as is in that cone of uncertainty to the south of Hawaii. Regardless, if it's this close, it's going to cause some surf and some rough waters, but it won't be a direct hit. A hurricane of this size hitting Hawaii as a Category 4 would be absolutely devastating, but they're saying the shear wind will hit at the exact time it's supposed to between Friday and Saturday, breaking the storm apart just as it would be hitting the Big Island if it stays on that track. Now, as far as Flossie goes, we still have some more time to try to figure out what this storm is going to do. This one's taking more of a northern track, even though it looks like it's heading right at Hawaii. I'm talking northern as far as compared to Erick here. Erick is far south of Hawaii. You see it come up north a little bit and stays underneath according to the GFS. But then Flossie is the one that is basically just parallel with Hawaii and continues that way and even makes a northern hook right at the end. So as of right now, it looks like this is going to be a direct hit from Flossie. But again, it's the same situation. They're expecting a high upper level shear wind that even airliners have to look out for. Airliners fly at about 35,000 feet. That's where these high trade winds are. So sometimes air flights have to adjust to these winds as well. That's how powerful they are. And that's what can rip a hurricane apart. And if we don't have that wind, that will allow a hurricane to live. So we have a very unique situation going on with Hawaii right now. Back-to-back hurricanes, very important to keep an eye out on these over the next couple days. And I'm glad I'm back just in time to be able to do that. Now, with that said, we got some action going on in the Atlantic Ocean as well. Nothing set in stone yet, but we have two potential storms that we need to look out for. This is just another look at, I believe, Flossie. Yes, this is Flossie right now. 987 pressure. If I back it up, we're at 988. Let's see what the lowest is we get to before it goes off screen. It actually goes up in pressure, so you can see right here just any northern movement, it puts it in cooler water. It'll raise the pressure of the central area of the low pressure. It'll make the storm weaker. That's basically how that works. The lower the number, the stronger the storm is. Clearly a hurricane, two hurricanes in the Pacific Ocean as we speak, and we could potentially have two hurricanes in the Atlantic. My guess it's going to be one that overtakes the other, and one of them should be watched fairly closely. So again, we went over Erick, we went over Flossie. We can get rid of that for now. And now let's check out the Atlantic. So as far as the GFS goes, they're calling for two storms. Now, I want to bring this to you in a way where we can look at both. I keep closing the wrong pages, but that's all right. I don't edit the mistakes. We just go right through them, and we'll take a look like this. So here we go. All right, so you see, oh, this one turned. This is what I was talking about. This is the one I'm concerned about. This I'm not so much concerned about, even though it will bring rain to the east coast of the U.S. I do not see this forming into a hurricane. I don't think it has the time and the movement of the system itself. Besides the what it'll do to parts of Dominican Republic, maybe northern Haiti, and then into Bermuda and the Bahama area, and then western Florida, and then it's going to ride up the coast if it stays as a compact storm. Now, what I'm really looking out for is this second one. So, as of right now, we've had three depressions, two named storms, and then one hurricane. That hurricane being Hurricane Barry. We all know about that. We could take a look at it right here on this chart. This was Barry. It came off land into the Gulf, became a hurricane. That came right back into Louisiana. It almost did a loop-de-loop. And then we had the letter A, and then we had C out there for a while, which could have been C. It was actually just a tropical depression, so it was not named. So we are still waiting for letter C, which will be Chantel, and then after that would be Dorian, and that is in the Atlantic Ocean. Remember, the Atlantic and Pacific have separate names. So Erick and Flossie are on the Pacific side, and right now we are waiting on our next named storm, which would be Chantel, which in my opinion is going to be this storm right here. This will be named, I believe, more than likely before it even reaches the Leeward Islands, and if it does reach the Leeward Islands, it'll probably be named right when it gets to the X, where they're marking this first invest that has a 10% chance of forming over the next 5 days. So keep that in mind. 10% chance, a lot of land interaction in between, possible shear wind, just not a good place for a hurricane to be able to develop, strengthen, and then continue to strengthen as it moves up the East Coast, which is clearly cooler water up here. If it were to make a slip underneath here and get into the Gulf somehow, that would be a different story, but I think that's what this one's going to do here. This one's reminding me a lot of, dare I say it, Irma. I don't know why. It's a gut feeling. I'm not making any predictions as far as what this thing is going to do, but when I saw this and I saw this setup here with highs and low pressures dealing with this, the atmospheric conditions, the Cape situation being out of control, the atmospheric conditions we have right now around the Gulf and the southern Caribbean right now are just in shambles. So it's not even worth reading or showing you guys this because it's just a blob of a burgundy color, which means any storms or moisture that enter this area are going to become something significant. And this just happens to be just outside of it. So even though it is a named invest, it is a noticed invest. You'll see here what I'm talking about. And just watch closely. So they say 10% chance, and I'm going to show you why. So remember the Bermuda Atlantic pressure. That's the high bubble pressure in the Atlantic. That's why all these storms follow around it. All our hurricanes come through the Leeward Islands, and then Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Haiti, Cuba, the Bahamas, Florida, so on and so forth. And this high pressure also determines whether or not they go into the Gulf or if the pressure releases and allows these storms to come up the East Coast. So that's what they're expecting with the first 10%. But with the one that we're looking at now, with a 40% chance over the next 5 days, this thing might go up by the end of this video to 50 or 60%. And then after that is red. When you see red, you can almost guarantee a tropical depression with a name. So I'm assuming this will be Chantel. Of course, you cannot predict all weather, so this may be Chantel, and this could be Dorian, or vice versa. You just never know. It's whichever one forms first, if both form, but I do believe this one will form right here. So with that said, 40% chance over 2 days. We have a little bit of time for this to develop and see what's going to happen, but before I let you guys go, I want to show you why one is 10% and one is not. So we're on the GFS here. We're going to run through the next couple days, and what you're going to see right up here, where this is where the X is, that yellow X, and they're expecting it to come up this way, 10%, and you're going to see it. Watch. So as I move slowly forward, right there, that is our 10%. Right there, that little green blob you see, that is over the next 4 days till August 4th. It's the 30th now. So over the next 4 or 5 days, that's what they're expecting to happen. That's why it's at 10%. I do not see a hurricane coming out of this. I see some East Coast, whatchamacallit. Oh, man, I can't even think straight today. Rough surf, some waves, some rain, just your typical, bad beach days going on. Maybe a little stronger than that, being that it's a group of storms rather than just one storm cell or a low pressure system moving through, but certainly it's not something small. I mean, it's not something to take lightly. It is mentioned on maps, multiple maps, but I just don't see it having enough time or enough area of warm water, enough time in the warm water to become a hurricane. I just think it's going to be a little bit of a pain in the butt for those on the southeast coast, and then it'll probably trek its way out into the Atlantic on the upper side of this high pressure bubble. But the second one, which I pointed out, that reminds me of Irma, is right here now. And this is the one that's going to be rising on a daily basis, probably every 8 hours. That's going to go up 10%. It's at what, 40% now over the next 5 days. The next will be 50. They might jump it right to 60, but check this out. So this one's going to come and go. The second one that's highlighted in orange, not so much. Watch this. So according to the GFS, this thing is going to start forming just to the north of the Leeward Islands and lined up directly with Puerto Rico. That's when we start seeing the low pressure symbol with the 1010 millibars. That's over 1,000, still not hurricane grade. And then, oh, I just hit back there, but we'll get back to that spot right there. But now check this out. So now that 10% chance of that hurricane has come and gone. This is probably the remnants of it. Usually after it hits this point and gets shot out towards Ireland and those areas, it usually flares up a little bit before it gets there. But just keep an eye here. This could get interesting, guys. This might be something that's going to affect us in a negative way. So right now it's saying it's going to be on the inside of the Bahamas, as in not going underneath Florida, not going into the Gulf, not going into the South Caribbean, but it says it's showing that the high pressure in the Bermuda Atlantic is going to let loose in a way that this thing is going to be able to sneak its way up above the Leeward Islands and Puerto Rico and Haiti, Dominican Republic, and then possibly become a hurricane after that. If that's the case, that would be a decent thing because we're dealing with cooler water out in this area. So what we want is for this exact situation to happen. You can see a high pressure here in the Gulf and another high pressure in the western side or eastern side of the United States. These two high pressures are what's keeping this storm away from our states. If you notice that, high pressures force away low pressures. That's why I talk about the Bermuda Atlantic. That's why you see storms, low pressures with the letter L, always follow around high pressure bubbles unless you get these little breaks in them. And by what I mean by breaks is this exactly. You can see right here how the line goes and then it bows up like that and then resettles itself, and then that pressure goes all the way into the Gulf. So looking at this frame alone, you would say to yourself, okay, this storm's going in two directions, one of two ways. It's either going to stay very far south underneath this ring of high pressure and get somewhere stuck in the South Caribbean, or somehow it's going to bubble its way up, get wrapped up in the high pressure, and then kind of carried up through the Bahamas and then possibly just shot back out to sea. That's what we want to see, but that's exactly what they said would happen with Irma. First, they had Irma shooting straight up to New York City on 9/11. Literally, no joke, they had that thing, the eye of the hurricane, Hurricane Irma, crisscrossing the ocean, cutting right through the high pressure, and landing right on New York City, no joke, in the center of Manhattan, the eye of this hurricane on 9/11. I made a video about it. The video went viral. I got some hate for it. I got some love for it. Ever since then, we haven't stopped here. So we know firsthand that anything can happen. So like I said, with that first invest, I don't see much of it happening besides a little bit of an issue on the coasts, but this second one we definitely need to watch out for, and that's what we're going to be doing in the coming days. So with that said, I think I've spoken enough here. Just a little bit more info on these two hurricanes in the Pacific that is of significance. Major Hurricane Erick and Hurricane Flossie will pose a dual threat to Hawaii, beginning during the middle of this week and continuing into early next week. Erick became Eastern Pacific Ocean's third hurricane of 2019. Okay, East Pacific hurricane season on Monday evening following Alvin and Barbara. We both remember those. They weren't too bad. As of Tuesday morning, local time, Erick becomes the season's second major hurricane with maximum sustained winds near 115. Obviously, we broke that. It is now a Category 4, possibly going into Category 5 before hopefully being weakened by shear winds. Just look at the perfect shape of this thing. This thing is a textbook hurricane, textbook eye wall, and then we have another big storm right on its heels in Flossie. So we could be seeing and dealing with two very significant hurricanes, and you can see right here, this thing is very well formed. I know a little boxy there; it's a screenshot, but just the shape of it, the features of it. This is what a typical strong, very healthy hurricane looks like. So, all right, guys, with that said, we're going to talk about radar scope a little bit later on. We do have some severe threats in the Northeast right now. We just dealt with one in Northeast PA, but this video's ran out a little bit long, so we're going to cut this one and let you guys get that information, and then we'll talk again soon. All right, guys, thanks for your patience. Caroline and I thank you all so much for the contributions you guys have been making. It's been such a huge help this week, and we can't thank you enough. So with that said, I'm going to let you guys go, and we will be in touch. Have a great day. It's one more day till August, guys. Can you believe it? Have a good day.